All right, everybody, welcome back to the Lasting Mission Podcast. As you know, I'm Ray Whitaker, and I'm going to be today's host. As you listen to the podcast today for veterans and their families while you're out there, do me a favor, make sure you visit missionrollcall.org. We have some polls that we just put on there that are super important. You read the news, you know the stuff that's going on right now, and we need your voice, okay? We need your voice because we need to inform and educate our government leaders to make sure that they're making the right decisions for us, right? All these decisions really, truly impact us. Today, I'm stoked. I'm happy. I'm appreciative. I had an opportunity to meet some folks a couple weeks ago, and today we have them on. So today we have Van and John from Operation Surf. They're going to be joining us virtually from California. Obviously, I'm on East Coast. They're on West Coast. So hopefully internet holds up as we do this. Operation Surf is a 501c3 whose mission is to channel the healing power of the ocean to restore hope, renew purpose, and revitalize community, one wave at a time. Our first guest is Van Carrazza, the founder and CEO of Operation Surf. We're going to learn about his story, how he, kind of thought about this organization and kind of where it is today. Our second guest is John Hallett, who is a program manager that will also be joining us. John has an interesting story, much like many of us as a veteran went through this process, learned a little bit about Operation Surf, and now is supporting others through this organization, which we absolutely love. If you want to learn more about Operation Surf, you want to donate to them, you can go to operationsurf.org. And as I always say, please consider supporting them, their mission. Trust me, they've got plenty of people asking to go. So your dollars absolutely help them continue their mission. So fellas, thank you so much for joining us today on the Lasting Mission Podcast.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us. It's an honor to be able to be here to, tell our story and, share what we do for others.
Yeah,
great. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm stoked to learn a little bit about both of you. Van, I think like with anything, the first for both of you guys, and Van, first for you, I'd love to learn just a little bit about your background, right? Kind of where you came from. Obviously, surfing is a big part of your life because you started this organization. It'd be good to kind of understand where you came from. And then John, when he's done, kick it over to you for that same kind of question.
All right. Well, Van Carrazza, I'm a former, big wave surfer, professional surfer. Really didn't succeed that well in the contest, but, the lifestyle and the full on, this close to disaster, was kind of like, my thrill.
Yeah.
So I liked, big, heavy, as they say in the surf world, gnarly waves. Yeah. And, it's crazy, about how all this came about is because, I'm not, and wasn't in the military, and I just lived a life, through my journey of, my life. It's basically the experience of, I don't know, it all started from childhood trauma. You know what I mean? It's just dealing with life, having no idea, not knowing where I belonged, the self-worth and, self-esteem, by being alone a lot, and I found surfing. And what happened was I found an opportunity, to find, I guess, value and credibility for myself that didn't come from a human being. Cause all I did, cause I was a good athlete. And so coaches tried to control me, and I was a very hyperactive, I guess they have a label for it now. It's ADHD. Mm-hmm. And I didn't focus very well. So I basically got in trouble all the time because I couldn't sit still. And, I had authority, issues, and so, I went to the ocean. I found joy, and I found, something that, I clicked with. And, so, fast forward is the lifestyle of living, large, or, wannabe rock star, whatever. There was, back in the 80s, there was a huge party aspect, about the surfing culture, and, and I got caught up in that. And so a big part of my journey is about addiction. So I'm a recovering drug addict. I got clean and sober, December 16th, 2002, and I have over 22 years of sobriety. And what I found in this journey was, for my own, self-care and wellness, and to continue, a positive life, was to be of service and helping other people, and personally, a connection with God, which really brought me to this place to where, I was able to find the value in all of my destruction. And that's one of the things of what happened is when I had 5 years of being clean and sober, I realized that life really wasn't that bitching, so to speak, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so I realized that I was a very selfish person, and it
Yeah.
was all about me. I was an only child, and so it was all about survival. It's like I had to do this, I had to get this, what's the next thing I need to do to get to the next place? But yet I was living a lifestyle that wasn't allowing me to move forward, and I had no idea that it was keeping me held back,
Yeah.
And so that excitement and the big waves and the surfing and the recognition I got from it, because kind of fueling the self-worth and the credibility of, my existence on this earth, and but prior to December 16th, 2002, I was on the verge of suicide and homicide. I was so miserable. I didn't understand what to do or how to do it. And I was so angry at the world. I was hurt, and some people were like, obviously, when you don't live your best life, people talk, and so when people were talking about my truth, I didn't like it, and so, I knew that this is where the journey starts beginning, is because I knew if I acted out of what my thinking was, I wouldn't be able to surf.
Yeah.
Because surfing gave me some type of value. And so, fast forward to December 16th, 2002, I was sitting in the hallway of courtroom D5 in the San Luis Obispo Superior Court, waiting for my sentencing for under the influence and in possession of a controlled substance,
Yeah.
and, methamphetamine speed was my thing, and, and so that day I realized that I was in this place because of me. I really think it was my first spiritual awakening. I was just sitting there. And for some reason, I realized that me sitting in that hallway waiting to go through this process, that I put myself there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of circumstances that I reacted to very poorly. Yes, things happened, but it was my part that I was really able to really realize that I have no one to blame for anything but me. And I
Yeah.
spent the majority of my life blaming everything, looking for every reason not to look at what was going on in my own life. And so, I got into treatment, and that treatment was the drug court system. And I went through Prop 36, and I really learned about my addiction. And more importantly, it got me introduced to a process of self-awareness and sobriety, and being clean and off of everything, and what it did is it gave me a clarity that I didn't realize that was so needed, is because I didn't realize the little things that I was doing. That's why I think denial is the killer, is because I didn't think what I was doing was that bad. But as soon as I stopped doing everything, my mind got a little bit more clear, and I started seeing things differently, and I started hearing probably the same message, but I started hearing it differently.
Yep.
And that's why I try to talk to, a lot of people that we talk about. I don't force, God or sobriety on people, but what I do is I share my story, and it led me to this place. And, that one decision that I made, December 16th in the hallway of courtroom D5 in the San Luis Obispo Superior Court, not only changed my life, but it changed thousands of other people's lives. Just one decision. And that's the power of choice and decisions that we make, one at a time,
That's right.
So as I got into this whole process I was, trying to survive in restaurant work so I can surf during the day. So I'd work at night, and, I was doing construction work and just doing whatever I needed to do to survive. And then I made a decision to stop all of that and just go 100% to my surf school, So I started Van Carrazza Surf School back in 2008. And that same year, and it's really funny how it works is, I'm really involved in the recovery community and here in San Luis Obispo. And I was helping a young man, but he told me I couldn't, because I'll give him a ride, to meetings and stuff. And he told me, he goes, I can't get rides from you no more unless you meet my house manager. He was living in a sober living environment. So I went to go visit him. And And first thing he said is, what do you want to do with your life? Because he wanted to know the character of the human beings that were being around, his clients. And I said, I just told him, I want to start an organization to help at-risk youth and take them surfing, because surfing helped me. And I want to share that with other kids, And he goes, well, you want to start a nonprofit? And I was like, yeah. He was asking me the question, and I was like, how am I not supposed to say yes at this point, right?
That's right.
And so I said yes, but he goes, I know you don't know how to do it, but if you want my help, I'll help you start it. And he goes, do you want my help? And I said, yeah, I want your help. It's just this always saying yes to someone offering, service and
That's
help.
right.
This the theory of everything about Operation Surf.
Yeah.
And so as I said yes, he goes, okay, well, come meet me here tomorrow at noon. And I was like, it was like immediate. And I was like, okay. And so I went in there, and he just started the process and started the application for, the tax exemption paperwork back then. And so I originally started it. It was called Amazing Surf Adventures. And so I started that. And then as I switched my life of being, constant thought of other people and, serving and being of service, I was given the opportunity to bring out and help, not to bring out, but to help take a group of active duty warriors in transition from the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas, and help them go surfing. And this is how the military came in front of me, because I didn't have a big idea. I didn't, all I kept doing is saying yes. And so there was a lady that worked. She was the founder of Operation Comfort in San Antonio, Texas, and she met and would go into the hospital and meet with the warriors. And her whole thing was, to help them be comfortable, and through the journey of their recovery. And there was a Navy corpsman that used to surf before he got injured, before he enlisted, and he had lost his leg stepping on an IED. And, her kind heart, Janice says, well, what's going on? She goes, I wish I just can surf again. And he goes, well, I want to surf. And she said, well, you find someone to take you surfing and I'll take you. And so he Googled amputee surfer, and I had an amputee surfer working. Was a good friend of mine, Rodney Roller, here in Pismo Beach. This is how all of this stuff from Texas ended up in San Luis Obispo County. It's just funny how all this stuff works, right? And so he asked me to help. And so as I was helping, through the time, this is where the beautiful thing starts happening is as I'm taking these guys surfing, these groups of surfing, there was a lot of physically injured, a lot of amputees, a lot of burns, spinal, a lot of issues during the combat, because that time, because it was 2006 and 2007 when we were, we were very active and, and so this is before I really started learning about, injuries, because, well, I'm a good teacher, because I know what it takes to get to A to Z and what elements it takes to achieve these things. And so as I started taking these guys surfing, I was younger, and I was like, quite frankly, I didn't understand all of the elements of their journey. And, and I'm looking at them like, fuck, they got no legs. They got both their legs are gone, above the knee, double amputees, and, burns and all kinds of different things. And, as I'm sitting back, in my mind going, their life is fucked. Right. And what happened is they were smiling after surfing. And I was like, man, I got to keep doing this. Yeah. And so as I started realizing that no matter what our circumstances, just like mine, when I went to the ocean, it erased everything that was currently going on. It's the most beautiful thing about surfing, is because once you go in the ocean, it takes 100% engagement. And so whatever you have on land, when you go into the ocean, you're going to not think about it. And that's why I use surfing so much in my life, going through all the crap I was going through. When I would go into the water, I would get relief and I would get that peace. I would get that serenity, because I was in nature and I was having fun and I was working out and I was, creating those endorphins and dopamines, that were creating that joy. And so as I started doing this stuff, I started realizing that their mindsets, once I started meeting the human beings behind the uniform and getting all of the, the perceived things going on. And I was actually when I was actually connecting with the person, I started realizing their mindsets, the military's mindset, were a lot like mine as a big wave surfer.
Yeah.
And so I began to understand, I was like, oh, I get where they're at. You know what I mean? And so I realized that, I could help these guys more by doing what I do. And so we started continuing on and working with Janice at, from BAMC at the CFI, the Center for the Intrepid. And I started meeting more and more warriors that were transitioning out. And I was able to see how taking them in the water was helping. And then in that process, I realized that there's a connection element. It was one of the most important things that Operation Surf does is creates connection.
Right.
And through that, there was obviously a lot of things that helped me figure that out, is because the people that were like, you come volunteer for a day, because this is a week-long process that we'd have people come in. We'd fly them in, pay for everything, housing, surf instruction, everything, food. And as we were going through this process, what was happening is we're building connection, and with connection comes the time for storytelling. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's why I realized I was very open and vocal about my recovery. And, and I've been starting off a lot of my meetings, a lot of my, speaking engagements that, I'm a drug addict, and I'm a drug addict that hasn't had a drink or a drug since December 16, 2002. And I really open up with a lot of vulnerability and honesty. And I really believe it really sets the tone when Absolutely. You can be honest and open in such a place that, because it really doesn't matter what my experiences are in the past. What matters is what I'm doing today. 100%. Right. And, and so if I can learn from my experiences in the past and use that to help other people, I've learned it's taken some of my most darkest times and turned them into the brightest light, is because I'm not coming from some school or whatever. I came from the University of Hard Knocks, and it's my own journey and my own recovery is what is the base foundation of what Operation Surf does. And that's what I share with, people like John, and we've been able to make, deep relationships. And so as we went and started going on and doing this more and more, I started realizing that our curriculum that we do, and so there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of sharing, there's no advice giving. We don't tell people what to do. We just share our own experiences. And, I basically kick off, that, I was a drug addict, and being of service to other people is what helps me. And, surfing and focus on, what's best for me today to keep moving forward instead of regretting the past and dwelling on what happened, what could have happened, what shouldas, couldas, and wouldas, right? And it's all regret, and it's all based on fear, and when I was able to really realize that the fear of me meeting new people, and not wanting them to know who you really are. But really what I learned is the more I was able to share the lack of fear and moving and having the courage to move through your truth, and the more I spoke about it, the less weight it had on it. And by speaking, build connection, is because there's always the person that's listening that relates to it. And once they hear people doing that, they realize, when you hear John's story, you're going to realize, like, the journey of hearing somebody else going through their experiences and what they do today allows people to connect, and then they're not alone. And when you're not alone, it builds unity. And when you're on a team and when you're with others going through struggles, you are most likely going to be able to overcome it. And what I realized is when I was by myself, one, I was never wrong. So any decision I have, I was like, I could justify and realize like that's a good idea, right? Instead of
Yeah.
somebody going,
I tell
nah,
my wife
you're
that all
cool.
the time, but she doesn't believe me, by the
I
way.
don't think that's a good idea, dude. You know what I mean? And so, but what it does is like when you're able to share openly with vulnerability and realize that when I share that story, it allows people to connect, you know, and when you connect, then you're not alone. And then when you hear somebody else doing it and they go, well, they did it, maybe I could do it too. And sort of hiding behind the shield of pride and ego, maybe I can say, yeah, I can understand. I'm going through this. What did you do about that? He goes, well, you know, this is what I do to overcome that stuff. And it basically gives people permission, allows people to give themselves permission to do something without being told what to do.
Yeah,
And that is one of the biggest things that I had to overcome is because people told me what to do my whole life. You need to do this, you need to do that. You know, you got so much potential. Why are
yeah,
you doing this? You know?
yeah.
And that's basically how I got going, you know. So now we serve not only the hospital, because God, the story is, you know, I've been doing it for 15 years, you know, and so what I realized is every program I did, I learned something. And the
That's right.
more I do this stuff, I learn more. We make
That's right.
adjustments and we make all these elements. And so we have a curriculum that basically builds connection and more importantly, trust.
Yeah,
And from our team here at Operation Surf, you know, we all openly share in a way that, you know, the integrity of our organization is all about, you know, connection and building relationships. And when you build a relationship, hopefully that you have the opportunity, like John and I, he's able to tell me the truth, you know,
yeah.
and when you're speaking to someone, most likely you're not taking your life, even though you may still try it
That's right.
and fail.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
John, that's part of John's story. I'll let him tell you, but
yeah.
that's basically how it is. And so now we're working with active duty special operation forces, and we realize that we bring in their spouses because if you help the house, the family, you're going to help the unit member. And when you help the warrior at home, he's going to go to work and he's going to be better at his job.
That's
And
right.
so now we're doing couples retreats. You know, we collaborate with other organizations I'll tell you about later, but um, that's basically how it's you know, how it started, you know. And so
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. So when I listen to you talk, man, and John, I saw you a couple times shake your head on comments, and I want to hit a couple of those. But you know, it's interesting. Like from service member perspective, you or as a military service member, you never want to show weakness, right? So much of what you're asking somebody to believe in is the fact that it's okay, that they're safe with you and the others that are there at that event to show weakness, right? To be able to talk about something that honestly they don't want to talk about because it could be something that's their fault, right? Accountability, responsibility, that's always something that we talk about. And you don't want to be the guy. And there are organizations where, you know, they take that to the furthest limit where it's just part of what they do as an organization, where you always talk about the failures and you always talk about the success, but you're never going to get better with those items. So it's very interesting to hear that. The other thing that you said, I think is very, very powerful is you can't make folks do things, right? And oftentimes you want to provide them options and let them know that it's okay, right? Like if you're
so,
just like that, you're just like that bee and that hummingbird, you know, that's just kind of just swarming around, just stopping it every once in a while. Hey, man, I'm there. I got you. Like, hey, let's talk about this thing. Oh, okay, not ready yet. I'll come back. At some point, you need them to feel comfortable enough that they can just go, hey, I'd like help. Because you're showing to them that like you do care, right? Like you are coming back. This isn't like a one-time thing because how many people have they seen in their life that have come and tried to help them that didn't have the best intentions? Maybe they were ill-intentioned when they came out. And then the final thing you said that I saw John, you know, shake his head up and down, which, you know, resonated with me a little bit. You know, we call it the calm before the storm, but I'm going to put it into like jumping out of aircraft. I remember the best part about jumping was once the chute opened and you had this time of just floating, which I can equate back to what you were talking about with surfing. And when you get on the water, it's just like nothing else matters at that point. Like, it's just like, there's this freedom that is just unbelievable, which you can compare somewhat to what you guys are doing on surfing. So I appreciate that, Ben. That's a great roll up for you. So, John, I'd love to kick it over to you to learn, a little bit about you, your story, and then why you're here with Operation Serve.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, how in depth are we going? Is this just an intro, or is this like you want the
Yeah, I
story?
mean, you can. I'm going to ask you lots of other questions, so it's up to you. I mean, just I'm sure as you start to go, I'm probably going to sit there and stare at you for 10 minutes, and that's okay, man.
Yeah.
Let it rip, John. There you go.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Kind of what you were talking about. Like I think like generally when you're in those dark places, especially as a veteran, it feels very isolated. You feel very isolated. You feel very alone. And kind of caveat what you guys were talking about, having that ability to, be vulnerable, speak your truth from your perspective really kind of resonates with other people. And it like lets them know, we all kind of go through generally similar things, and, whether it's traumas or anything, the way we deal with it as human beings is very similar. But when you're in when you're in that darkness, you really kind of feel isolated, alone. I had several times in my life where I felt that. But kind of backing up, I grew up in San Diego, typical middle-class family. I was out of Poway, California. It was probably 30 minutes from the ocean. So I kind of had a fascination with the surfer lifestyle. Growing up, I really just, I was kind of into swimming, water polo. But my family wasn't really ever like beachgoers. So, I saved up like $50. I remember when I was like in 8th grade and bought this used like crappy board that, was all banged up and everything like that. But, and I tried to learn on that every time I could get to the ocean, which was not that frequent. So I didn't get very good in high school, but I aspired to be a surfer. I just was like, I really like that lifestyle. Yeah, I had a typical childhood. Nothing out of the ordinary. Graduated high school. Wasn't real stellar in school. Wasn't real bad in school. Just kind of,
Are you telling my story or yours, John? Like I'm just
maybe,
trying to figure this out here.
like I said in the beginning, it's all relatable, right? But ended up kind of graduating college. My dad was a retired Marine. We kind of grew up butting heads a little bit here and there. And I was kind of like adamant against ever joining the military. I was just like kind of despite him, like, no way, I'm never joining the military.
Yeah.
Got out of college, got out of high school, went to college. About 2 years into college, I was kind of going for a computer science degree. And kind of working on that degree, I just realized I really don't like computers that much. And so I was kind of at this like crossroads where I was trying to contemplate whether like, which way am I going to go? Am I going to change my degree? Am I going to find somewhere else to go? I was just like, I knew I just didn't want to go down this path. And then September 11th happened. And something inside me just kind of like went, let's go that way. Let's serve my country. That's kind of honorable. I'll get a little action. It'll also give me a little time to figure out what the hell I want to do, right, with my life. I also, had a high school sweetheart. She's my wife still to this day now. And it gave me the opportunity to kind of like, hey, like we can finally get married. I can have a job. And so that's kind of the path I went. We got married, joined the Army. And after I finished my associates, I kind of finished up like half of my college and shipped off the basic in August 2002. I did 14 years in the Army. I enlisted as a tanker. Spent most of my career as a twat, I'd call it, like a tanker without a tank. So, like,
Nice,
I mean, I pretty much I think I shot a gunnery with the tank once, and then we turned our updates back in. So pretty much the whole time I was like, on Humvees or whatever. My first deployment was Humvees. And then, after my first deployment, I did a green to gold. I decided to finish up my degree. Finished up the computer science just because it was kind of the means to an end. It was the quickest way to finish my degree in the 2-year time limit that they gave me. And I branched back in the armor community. Kind of spent most of my time in the scout side after that, and infantry. Had 2 more deployments, one more to Iraq, and then another one to Afghanistan. And then, got medically retired in 2016. And that's kind of when I found Operation Surf. I was kind of struggling a lot in that period of my life. I was dealing with a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. I was on a whole gambit of medications, from sleep to antidepressants to anti-anxieties. Just I've just every time I went to the VA, it was just like, here's another, try this one and try that one. But as I retired out of Fort Bliss, Texas, and
I'm sorry, by the way.
Yeah. That's probably a contributed to
that alone, sir, was your contribution to America. That place. I mean, it's just in the middle. I mean, so for those that are listening, just understand why I say that. It's just like one of those bases that is like in the middle of like really, honestly, nowhere. So there's like, if I'm going to pick my location to go, I prefer to go to Las Vegas, like just give me something to do when I'm on off time. So I just want to give them a little bit of an understanding for those that may not know.
Yeah. For places that I mean, I got hooked up a lot when I was in the Army. I actually did 2 rotations at NTC, or two. I was stationed there twice. Upon the multiple rotations.
Hooked up. I got hooked up. Good food though. Good food. I think good food in that area. I mean, it's Tex-Mex, but it's still good food.
Sure.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, whatever you need to make it sound like it's a better place. Anyway, sorry, John.
So I was in the middle of the med board process, and I had a buddy of mine, who another captain who had gotten out about a year prior, and he's from this area, and I'm like, I see him I see a post on Facebook, and he's down here at Morro Rock. It's a beautiful kind of scenic picture, nice beach with a big old rock, and he's standing there on the beach, and there's like 4 or 5 of them individuals, and they all have these boards, and they're standing on the beach with these brand new boards behind them. And there's a photo, and it's like, he's talking about this. At the time, it was called Operation Surf for Vets, and it was this graduation from this program that he just went through, and he was awarded this free surfboard and wetsuit.
So this one is a 6-month-long program for local veterans in the area. So I'm not flying people from all over. It's just focused on local veterans in the area. So it's a 6-month-long program, which is now 3 months, and we teach them everything. And at the end, we give them a surfboard and a wetsuit. So anyway,
that's awesome.
That's what he was seeing.
Yeah. So I saw the picture, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, at that point in my life, like when I was kind of like, the med board was like unexpected. And so I was at this point where I was like, what the hell am I going to do in my life? Like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who I want to be. I don't know anything after this life of the military, right? Because the military is so encompassing. It kind of provides your social network, your family networks, all your friends and everything is there. Your housing, your kids' education, everything is like, wrapped up in that, in the military. And so it's hard to see outside of that bubble, right? And so I was kind of figuring it out. And when I saw that post, and I kind of looked into the organization, I went, that's like something that I really kind of want to incorporate into my life. Like, I think I don't think I'll ever have make a living off of surfing, but like, if I could just have surfing as something in my life, like
a hobby, man, something that you enjoy, that you've always wanted.
I want that in my life. I was drawn to it as a kid, and I was like, I want it now. And and so I called up OpSurf, and I ended up talking to Amanda Crazza, Van's wife. She was the executive director here, and she's like, yeah, we'll get you in the next program. So that was enough motivation for me to kind of like figure out how I'm going to get to this area.
Yeah.
Luckily, I had some family here. They helped that transition to help my family and kind of stuff come here. And yeah, I came here and I was in the next program. Made some lifelong friends that were still friends to this day. Went through that 6-month program, got the board, got the wetsuit, and just ever since then, Operation Surf's been a big part of my life.
Yeah.
Through ups and downs, and there was quite a few downs I'm sure we can go into later, or unless you want me to go into now, but it's been a journey. I kind of came on board as a veteran manager for a little while and then kind of fell out of that. And now I'm back here as the program manager. Like you said, kind of in the beginning, it's really just to give back. It's to be of service to others, kind of the help in any way I can and kind of share my journey with them. Because that transition from that active duty life to civilian, I wasn't expecting the challenges that would come from that. I knew everybody kind of talked about it. I know it's something I heard about while I was in, but it was like, how do you kind of envision that or picture that in your mind, what it's actually going to be like?
You can't.
You can't. It's really how do you kind of picture being who you are right now today, and then being a completely different person in, a matter of 4 or 5 years. Like, you can't even envision how that, happens, but
That's right.
Well, I'm gonna go into it because when we're talking about connection and creating friendships and life goes on, and I stopped seeing John, and I'm like, where's John? Where's he doing? One of our other buddies, Johnny Benton, moved back to Colorado, so a big part of his support family that we created here with him, with the other families here, because we have a family day, and so in that program, and so families come together and they got to meet each other, and he connected with Johnny, and then Johnny ended up moving away, and and then we're still doing our programs, and then John kind of like drifts off and starts going off into his own thing. And I think really this is where John's story really kicks in, is about you can start something, but if you don't continue doing something, things can get even darker. And
That's right.
I think this is where the connection and the relationship element that can be created, as long as you allow it to do, can be really helpful. And so I had text John and I said, "Hey, I haven't seen you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Give me a call."
Yeah.
No answer. And I think this is one of John's most powerful moments.
Yeah. John, we're all about it. Tell us about your powerful moment there. And the reason I say this, John, is because, listen, man, we all do this.
Yeah.
All of us, right? Like, all of us, even me. I can tell you multiple times that people have texted me, and I'm just in that space where I'm like, I just don't want people, like, I'm going down a dangerous curve, and there's always, doesn't matter what people think on the other end of this, on this podcast, this is us talking, but, to me, it's either friends or it's a belief, right? And whatever that belief is to you, there's a God, there's like whatever that thing is, right? Something, there has to be something, there has to be, for you to continue, right? And I think we've started to feel that. My thing is this, like, right? Like, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to impact veterans in their lives. I've not lived a perfect life, and nor will I live a perfect life, right? I can't go back, can't erase the things that you've done in life. All you can do is look forward. And I thought that was great that Van said that. So this is powerful because I know somebody every day, not every day now, but back when I was doing transition stuff, I was meeting people every day that were telling me the same story that I just lived through. And I was like, oh my God, man, I just want to shake you and help you, but I can't. So I would love to hear yours, because that's that point, man. You start to back away and you're like, okay, man, is there a reason for this? Am I doing what I can do? And all those questions start to come because, like I said, it does impact others the right way. So I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah. So like, that transition from kind of the military into the air, like I kind of mentioned, I jumped right into OpSurf, and I kind of I kind of boil it down like kind of what Van was saying is, so that connection, staying connected, having that purpose, having that community. And, I kind of started going dark. I went from the military, which is like that ingrained, I tell the story a lot to other veterans is you kind of go from like adolescent, youth, and you're going through school and you have that community, right? You have all the kids around you, your friend group, and you go from like, elementary, middle, high school, and you kind of follow these groups of friends, and then you get out and maybe you go to college and you have a community there that's built in, or you go off into a job and you kind of form a community there, or you go into the military and there's your community, and I think like
the tribe. Yeah.
And like, the thing a lot of veterans kind of deal with when they're kind of transitioning is you lose that community.
That's right.
You literally have like no community on the outside.
100%.
It's really starting up from the ground zero, right?
Sure.
And what Operation Surf gave me right in that key crucial like moment was a community. I got out and I jumped right into that 6-month program. And like I said, I have some friends that are lifelong friends right now today. And that was the community. At the end of that 6 months though, the program was over. We've done a lot better now. Like we definitely especially after my experience and stuff like that, incorporated in, monthly surf days and kind of continuing things so that people, once they get out, they're still connected and they're still kind of being pulled out of their house.
Bringing them back together after the fact.
Yeah.
Keep them together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But back in like 2016, 2017, we didn't really have that. The program ended and everybody kind of went their own ways, right? Like a couple of buddies moved out of state. Some others got another job. People got married, everybody kind of stopped surfing. Right. And so, and when that happened, like I stopped surfing too. Right. And I just kind of ended up, having a low self-worth. When I got out, I was medically retired. I had a VA payment, but I also got Social Security, and that I relate to today as kind of like a ball and chain.
That's right.
It's this mentality you got to kind of, it puts you in that like you're messed up and that's why you're getting money from the government. And it kind of, for me, at least for me, it kind of kept me in that mindset. And I'd almost say it exasperated the conditions just because like, I didn't really know how to support my family without that money.
That's right.
And the only way to continue to receive that money is to continue to be like messed up. Right.
Yeah. Continue to be broke.
Yeah. And so, but with that being said, I was in this position in that place where I basically could not work because if I worked, I would lose that money. So I ended up staying at home. Right. I stayed at home. My wife would go to work, my kids would go to school, and I'd just kind of be alone with my thoughts. Yeah. I was drinking at the time as well. And so the drinking started getting kind of pretty out of control. It was a daily thing. It was kind of like what I needed to get the edge off, to get myself through the day, whatever it was, to escape, to numb, just to get out of my own thoughts. And I kind of started going in a dark place. And like Van said, I kind of lost contact with him. I lost contact with everybody.
Sure.
Like some friends would reach out and I just never reply. I started being kind of a draw on my wife, a draw on my kids. I felt that. I felt like I was kind of like a drain on them, right? Like I was bringing the family and the household down. So my self-worth was kind of going down too. And I had no purpose. I didn't have a purpose. My job was to just basically, collect a paycheck. That's how I felt.
Right. But was that the reality? I mean, for somebody listening, looking back now, do you feel, obviously you're still married to your wife, you still got kids. Were you a drain? Were you really, part of it's your own internal thought?
It was all internal. My wife is still with me. Because she saw the potential, right? She knew
that's right.
she knew who I was. and she knew there was still the real me in there, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's just all of this is in our minds, right? It's all
Sure.
the stories that we tell ourselves in our minds. It's
Sure.
we're like the main star in like the worst drama that we can probably imagine, right? We
Yeah,
always
100%.
we always paint it as like the most dramatic, craziest, worst story possible, and we're like the
Yeah.
main star that's like the victim of everything, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of going down a dark place, and I wasn't. The drinking thing started getting kind of out of control, and so there was restrictions put on me by the wife, and it was like ones that were voluntary, like no more drinking at the house, okay, and different things like that. But I remember one morning I had a pretty bad night, some nightmares and different things, and I was really kind of triggered, and I was in my mind that these, I couldn't get out of my mind was basically the thing. And my wife goes to work, my kids go to school, and I ended up started drinking in the middle of the day. And she came home from work, and just saw that I was drinking. I was like, hey, I'm just going to go to my brother's, take the kids. And like in that moment, I just went, oh, damn, like I'm screwing everything up in this family, right? Like here I am, like I'm just a worthless POS, like I'm just screwing everything up, and just kind of going down that rabbit hole in my mind. And it was at that moment where I just decided like enough's enough. Like I'm just gonna end my life. And so sorry, this is like tough. I grabbed my gun. I hopped in my Jeep, and there was this spot that I had gone by. It's a little it's up like a 4-wheel drive kind of road. It's a nice overlook in the hills, probably about an hour and a half east of where we're at, and there's like a really nice little overlook. Nobody's ever up there because it's like you really like a 4-wheel drive. It's like an OHV kind of area, and it was like it was already dark. It was probably like 9 or 10 at night, and I decided like I'm just gonna go out there. I didn't want my wife or kids coming home and finding me. I just wanted a clean kind of exit out of here. And I hopped in my Jeep and I started heading out that way. And there's some windy kind of roads getting out there. Little mountainous kind of switchback roads. And I'm driving down the road, and and everything's fine. And I have I have my GPS on my phone. And it's kind of down on it's like down on the and I don't have a mount, so it's like laying kind of on my center console kind of area. And I get to a spot on the road, and it's because it's windy the whole time, and I get a spot where it's kind of straight, and I know my turn's coming up because it's a little dirt road that's off the road, and my turn's coming up, and I look down at my phone, and as soon as there's a straightaway, and once I look back up to the road, like there's no more road in front of me. I'm just smacking foliage and trees, and like I don't know what the hell I'm hitting, but I'm just like flying off the road and through some trees, and I end up landing like kind of on all fours. And windows are busted out. Like I don't even know what the hell happened, like what I hit, but just the car is just, it's still running, but it's like there's no windows. It's just, I don't even know what's wrong with it, but I'm just, the only thing in my mind is like crap, like I got to get the hell out of here. Like this is not where I need to be right now. So I just, I got the 4-wheel drive, and I just put it like in 4-wheel, and I try to get up this hill, and I can't get up it. It's just the wheels are spinning, and the hood's kind of, there's smoke coming up from the front of the car, and I'm like, what the? So I back up, and I end up falling down some more, like another like ledge, and my Jeep's just sitting straight up, and I'm just like, well, fuck, like I guess this is I guess this is a spot then, because I'm not getting out of here. So,
Yeah.
So I was like, well, so I go and look for my gun, and my gun was right on the driver or the passenger seat. And I can't find it. Like, and it's pitch black. I'm like under a canopy. There's like no moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm feeling around all over, and I'm just like trying to find this gun, and I can't find it. I'm like, I get out of the Jeep and I crawl down. I'm like all over the ground trying to feel it. Like, I don't know where the hell this gun went, right? It just went flying somewhere. And so I figured, well, it's like 10 or 11 at night. Maybe I'll just wait till the morning. Yeah. Wait for some light to come up, and then I'll look for it then. And so I crawl back into the Jeep. I sit back in the seat, like facing back up, and all of a sudden I see like some like lights up there, like a flashlight. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, I mean, I'm out in the boonies. I'm out in the nowhere, right? And I'm like, who the hell's like, I'm thinking maybe somebody's walking their dog or something, but I'm like, there's nobody out here. There's no houses. Like, what? And I'm like, and then like the flashlight's kind of getting closer, and I'm like, oh shit, like somebody's gonna like aim it down here and see me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, well, I guess the gig's up. So I crawl up like the side of the cliff, and I get up to the top, and all of a sudden, like I'm just blinded by the flashlight, and I hear this guy just yelling, "Don't fucking move!" And I'm like, what the? I'm like I don't even know who this guy. I can't even see anything. And he's like, "Don't move! Like that's a live power line." And I'm like, "What?" And there's like this like power line right like next to me. So when I kind of went off that road, I went right through the power line, just sheared the whole thing off, and that triggered the PG&E, the power company, right? And so that dude was out here for the PG&E, and then like literally like 30 seconds later, here comes the fire truck, and the cavalry's arrived, and it's like, oh, like the gig's up, right? Like, and then the CHP shows up, and and then I'm being I'm being put in handcuffs for a DUI. And so what was already like the lowest point in my life, like that just compounded it, right? Like I couldn't even like kill myself, like, and now I'm going back to my family with a DUI. The wife didn't even want me back home. So I got out of jail the next morning. My uncle picked me up, took me to his house. And my wife wouldn't want me back. I wasn't around my kids. I just sank into a really, really, really low place. And that's when I saw Van's text.
Yeah.
That he had texted me literally the day before, that basically said, "Hey, John, like thinking about you, buddy. Haven't heard from you in a while. Give me a call sometime." And so, that's when I gave him a call, and that was August 22nd, 2018. And
nice.
That was the last, like he said, he's kind of into recovery. So coincidentally, also that weekend was also the AA convention, or we have it once a year here, and he kind of scooped me up, and we went to some meetings. That was the last time that I had drank alcohol. And that was really the moment where I kind of hit that rock bottom of my life. And that was the point where I decided to start taking advice. Up until that point, I was just doing things the way I wanted to do them. I was kind of operating. I wanted to operate, right? I wanted the things that I wanted in my life. I wanted the drinking. I wanted whatever that my coping mechanisms that still exist. And I also wanted to feel good, right? And it was like, you couldn't have one without I couldn't have both. That set me on the path of recovery. After that, I ended up kind of coming back, working for OpSurf. I was the veteran manager here. It was a fully volunteer position. and I took on a lot. I was it was like a full-time gig. And that was good. It was good for a while.
Yeah.
But I think what happened was like, that transition from who I was in the military to who I am now was just starting to happen.
That's right.
At that point, I was kind of prolonging it or delaying that transition through the drinking, through the substance abuse, through the just not letting myself really like, I guess, shed the skin of
Yeah.
the military and become like who I'm supposed to be as a civilian. I was holding on to that veteran life, that, all that stuff. And so it wasn't until like that moment, I was probably just starting to transition into whoever I was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I was going through a lot. I was still battling with depression, just because I stopped drinking didn't fix everything. Right.
That's right.
It wasn't like overnight I was just a completely different person. I still was full of anxiety. Still on medications for that. I was still on the SSRIs for depression. I was still on sleep medications. I was still on all the VA medicine and everything they were giving me. And I was trying to also basically work a full-time job here.
Yeah.
And it was hard.
Yeah.
Being of service to others it really is a benefit to you, but it drains people.
And it could be a curse too. I mean, because not only your problems that are weighing, right? It's the individuals that you're helping, because it's not
Right.
just
You got to fill your cup, right? You got to also, you got to
right.
take care of yourself.
That's right.
You can't
That's
all
a good
be,
way to put it.
you can't all be service. You got to also kind of take care of yourself. And I wasn't at that time.
Yeah.
The only thing I was doing was I was sober.
Yeah.
Everything else essentially was the same.
Yeah.
I was back with the family. I went through a 6-month PTSD program down in San Diego at the Aspire Center. I was trying to do all the right things, and I was, but the thing was, it was time. You need that time to really kind of grow and become who you're going to be when you get out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so like I kind of fell off again. I did that job for probably 1.5 years, 2 years, somewhere in there, like 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. And
right before COVID hit,
it was after COVID, because I helped this when we went to the small programs. I ran the first 2 years of it.
Okay.
Yeah. That was probably until 2021. And then I just got inundated with depression again, and anxiety. Suicide was off the table for me.
Yeah.
In that moment and in those times, like it consumed my thoughts, but it was something that I was never going to address again. I had kind of wrote that contract in my mind that no matter how bad it gets, like that's just
worth it. Yeah.
It's not going to be an option, right? I was never going to do that to my family again. I was never going to do, because even though I wasn't successful, I mean, that was definitely traumatic to my wife.
That's right. Yeah.
At that point, right?
Yeah.
And but things got dark again. It was just, there's ups and there's downs, and I went back into an isolated, dark existence, lack of purpose and meaning, and really just not really understanding why I'm still here. I was kind of just, I was at a point with the VA to where I had kind of exhausted all the medication options for SSRIs and SR, I think NIs or whatever they call them. Like there's 2 classes of them. And my prescriber basically looked at me and said, "Hey, like," I said, is there any other options other than another pill?" And he said, "There's this, I think it's called like ganglio nerve block or something like that. They like stick a needle through your neck and And I was like, that doesn't sound fun. Um, and then there's another one, the electric magnetic stimulation or something
Yeah.
like that. I'm like, so basically just like modern day shock therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't, I'm like, you guys, that's the options you've given me. And so it really kind of motivated me at that moment to like look for other options.
Yeah.
And finding an organization called the Mission Within.
Mhm.
And it was a psychedelic trip down to Mexico.
Eh.
And I ended up doing that in summer of 2002, and it kind of it changed my life.
Yeah.
It really like allowed me to kind of step outside of myself, outside of my mind, outside of my head, and look at myself objectively,
Mhm.
and really see like where my thinking was going wrong.
Yeah.
And it also showed me kind of what was the most important in my life.
Yeah.
And from that kind of moment on, like I've just been on this other path of mindfulness, and I've incorporated meditations and with the
Good.
sobriety, and I'm
Yeah.
off. I'm 100% off all meds now. And yeah, and this, after about a year and a half, like this job opened up, and I jumped on it because throughout all of this, since the time that I joined the 6-month program, right when I got out, throughout the whole life, like Van and the whole team here at Operation Surf has just been there for me, even when I wasn't there for them. And so, as soon as I was able to, um, as soon as I would reach out, they were there.
Yeah.
And even when I wasn't there for them, they're still reaching out to me, and he does this for like every veteran that I know that's gone through this program. He kind of, carries them with them. He has this
Sure.
like this heart that just wants to care for everybody, and he
For
really
sure.
takes on a lot of stress and a lot of like grief and stuff like that with people. When they're going through hard times, he empathizes like more than anybody else I ever know. That's always been a trait that I've always had a hard time with, but Van's like empathy is, above reproach. It's pretty astounding. And like, he's been here for me the whole time. And that's, I think, why I love this organization so much and want to get back.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I mean, that's the great part of the nonprofit sector in general, right? And not all. I mean, we can't. I wish I could blanket and say 100% of nonprofits are doing what Operation Surf are, but the transition for a service member is the hardest. And the interesting part for me, coming out and looking at this is it used to be about me, right? It's always about me, man. The military, me, 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 me. And then
No.
I transition. It's still me, 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 me. I never looked right. I never looked left at my wife and my kids and said, oh snap, like they got it just as bad as I do, right? They lost just as much as I did, when you leave service. So that's an interesting thing with Operation Surf and the idea that you guys as an organization are not only bringing the service member or the veteran out, right? You're bringing the family, the spouse, because often we get separated. I mean, there's no, I love to tell a story. And I think I told Van and them last time, this interesting thing where I never spent time at home. I was always on the road. And then all of a sudden I'm home now. And I remember the very first day I'm home like for an entire day, which just felt weird, which wasn't a weekend. I'm here for like 2 weeks straight. And I go and I put my cup beside beside the sink. Right. And I'd leave. And then the wife would come in and be like, what are you doing? I'm putting what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm going to drink from it later. No. That you either wash it or you put it in the dishwasher. It does not sit beside the sink. And the first part of you goes, which is very powerful what you said, John. First part of me is like, okay, first off, you don't tell me what I do, right? Like I'm my own man. But the other part of me goes, man, she's had to deal with 20 plus years of like this life. I'm going to give and see what happens. Right. I go, okay, hey, no worries, and I put it in the thing. And so people often ask me, how is your marriage and all the other things? It's because I give. And I think that's in all aspects of life. It's not easy walking in a room going, I'm not the smartest person in this room. Right. And sometimes I am, right. Because of my own mind, I am a competitive guy. I do have an addictive personality and I want to win, but I also understand to be the best that I can be, I've got to surround myself with smarter people. Right. And I've got to give them the idea that they are that. So it's a very interesting with you guys, not pretty surf. So I want to break into like the surfing van. I think that this is such a unique opportunity to talk about like resilience and service members and veterans in general, the tangibles that we learn from our service and the time that we have, the ability to create a tribe.
Yeah.
You create brothers and sisters with your service, you know, and I mean, literally brothers and sisters, right? Like I care about them just as much as I would my family. What is surfing? How does surfing kind of, make that bigger for somebody? What does it bring? What are the tangibles?
Well, first of all, you identified a lot of traits in the military personnel that that is very beneficial while you're in the military, and you're using that to get to the next level, to to get to whatever, to E9, whatever your goal is because everyone wants to go, and these traits are really beneficial. But then you leave and you have those same benefit. You still have those same traits, but you have a belief system that really doesn't work in the private sector.
That's right.
And so one of the things I wanted to say with that is like through all those circumstances is no matter who we think we are, I need to remain teachable. Because if I am not a student and don't allow myself to have teachers around me, I will learn nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
That humility that I had to get to, I really want to, because that transition that you guys just talked about and all these different things is that ability to learn through all of our experiences and realize that even though I may be doing something may not be for everybody, but it's that support and being there for everybody, but it's using those same traits in a different platform, in a different way to help you in certain areas. But that change to use it in a different way is one of the hardest transitions. And that's, as the transitioning military guy is that's that transition that you're talking about.
That's right.
So being teachable, how does surfing relate to all of this stuff? I'm going to use some examples. I'm going to use two examples that are very significant towards the military mind. So one, I was helping this Marine, and he's coming surfing, and I often say I dangle the carrot of surfing to get people into, the transitional platforms of hearing stories to really plant the seeds of internal self-awareness, right?
Right.
So I have this Marine, and I'm not going to get into the different branches, but I'm a fucking Marine, you know what I mean? And he's going, I'm going to kill it, and I'm going to smash, and just the characteristics across the board in all military and all human beings, especially in men that are just driven by pride and ego. Okay.
That's right.
This one particular is Bobby, and he goes in and he's like, I'm going to do this. And the waves are, so I set up platforms for people to experience different levels of, cause it takes practice to learn anything. Right.
That's right.
If you go into an attitude with your expectations of just like, I'm going to kill it, you are going to fail.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is, I've done this, I've created this, I've made it this far, blah, 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 and so I hired professional surf instructors because I realized that during this journey is the people that I put next to you that are going to be there all week long need to figure out and be able to spend enough time with you so you can accomplish small attainable goals as you're here learning how to surf. And so we're attentive to, like, we get one or two warriors or a couple, and we focus on the individuals as a surf instructor, and we try to figure out how to not only, help you, get comfortable, but help you learn to achieve these things. And so we like to tee everyone up for success, which that means lower your expectations. We'll give you small goals. So anyway, the teachable. He wasn't listening to his surf instructor. He refused to listen because I'm going to do this on my own. This might sound really familiar. I don't know if you're listening, but he's all, it's not that big. There's small waves. They're doing it. I can do this stuff, but he refused to take any direction. And he was getting his butt kicked.
Yeah.
He was just getting smashed. And he tells me this later, by the way, right? Because when you build these relationships, you know what I mean, you start hearing the stories that you didn't know were existing at the time. But so he tells me he's all, fuck. If I don't listen to this guy, I'm gonna drown. So he gave himself permission to listen to the surf instructor because he's not military. He's just a surfer.
That's right.
Well, whatever, you know what I mean? And so it's that the equal plane. There was
There's no mutual respect yet.
There wasn't nothing there yet, right?
Yeah.
And so then he goes, "Oh my God, I need to listen to this guy." So everyone became. We all have positives and we all have negatives.
That's right.
There's a bit of good in the worst of us, and there's a bit of bad in the best of us.
That's right.
So we all have equal planes. And so what he did is he gave himself permission to listen, help change his perspective of life, is because he was unwilling to be teachable and to take directions from anybody. And so surfing, you know, the small attainable goals, and this is where it's going to transition into a bilateral amputee. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, the individual, the pride and ego of the warrior had to right size himself and say, okay, I, of all people, as much as I want to admit, I need to start listening to somebody else to get to the next level. And this is relatable in life. Okay. Just not in surfing. It's just a tool. Okay.
Yeah.
So then I'm taking, you know, a lot of injured warriors, surfing. And so this bilateral above the knee amputee is coming to come surf. And so I do a little, you know, introduction, and we call it the meet and greet. And I introduce the whole team that's going to be with all of our new participants. And I basically tell them, you know, I start off with, you know, obviously my story about who I am and how this came about. And I basically said, because picture your journey on the way here. You always create these perceived ideas of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So you're already fucking yourself and you don't even know it, right? So you're going on this journey. And so he sits there and he's got he's kind of got this little frown on his face. You know, I got all my limbs and I'm talking about all this stuff. And he's kind of looking at me like, you don't get it. And I'm like, right at that moment, I go, look, you're not going to surf like me. You're going to surf like you. Yeah. I'm going to show you what it takes to make a surfboard work. And I'm going to show you what it takes to catch a wave. And you're going to learn how to surf like you and not like me. And I looked at that guy and I said, you right now have been traveling out here saying, I'm not going to be able to surf. I got no legs. It takes legs to surf, because he has this perception.
That's right.
About what surfing is. And he didn't even give himself a chance to look at things differently. Because he's like, I'm not going to be able to do it. I don't got no legs. And I said, you're going to surf like you. And I'm going to show you what it takes to make a surfboard work and what it takes to catch a wave. And I said, believe it or not, by the end of the week, I'll probably have you doing headstands and you'll probably be the star of the whole trip. And he's looking at me like, who the F do you think you are? Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
And I know what it takes to make a surfboard work. More importantly, I know what you do to make it not work.
That's right.
So problem solution. So if you identify the problem, you can get in the solution. If you continue living in the problem is going to continue.
Yeah.
If you are teachable and start learning to take directions and, you know, find a solution for whatever the circumstances is. The guy was doing headstands. He was on the front page of the local newspaper.
It was great.
And he went from like, I can't do it. All these guys got legs. I got no legs. And here he is, you know, is because the accomplishments of being teachable and listening and trying something different is life-changing. And then you take surfing. Surfing is fun. you're in Mother Nature, you're learning next to your brothers and sisters. People are speaking truth and vulnerability. They're exposing, challenges and celebrations. And we're all doing this as a group. So we're all creating equality by saying, here's my success and here's my challenge. And then when each individual in the whole group is doing this, it gives permission for people to say. And so what basically I do is I say, hey, talk about a challenge in surfing. You don't have to talk about a challenge at home. But while you're doing this stuff, it allows people to learn how to talk about not doing good.
Yeah.
And once you start learning how to do that, and much as you struggle through the whole thing, and John still, is challenged at a certain times, and obviously it still carries a lot of weight, but he knows that, telling his story is going to help somebody else look forward to finding a solution for their challenge in life. And so surfing, why is it ultimately one of the best therapeutic things you can do? And I also say I'm not therapy. I'm a surfing program that has therapeutic results.
Right.
And what I do is connect a human being to another human being. And so ultimately you're in Mother Nature, you're exercising, you're having fun, you're creating endorphins and dopamine. So you're creating joy, you're doing it with other people. So you're creating a community. You're all being as honest as possible, and you're creating this opportunity to have lifelong friends. And then comes to John and like others, is I realize there's more than just you coming to our program for a week or the 6 months or the 3 months. Is we try to set platforms and processes and tools to affect people's life indefinitely. We're not just here to say, hey, come to our program, go have a good time. Thanks for participating. And, talk to you later. And so like John's and I's experience, like when he came back to work and I was really like, are you sure you're ready for this? And, he basically said, yes, I'm ready for this. And then it came down to the point where what he was talking about, he had to make a decision for his family to come to work, which is that fear of change. Is he had to drop his SSI, right? Was it your
SSDI? Yeah, that's the Social Security. Yeah, that was the. That was that point. Is that ball and chain that I was kind of talking about before? Was I'm collecting this money for being, effed up, and I don't think I am anymore. I hit this point where I'm like, I feel good, I'm better, but I need a purpose. I need something to go.
You're right there. Purpose.
I need a reason to get up in the morning. I need a thing. I need to provide. I need to be a net positive for my family and in my mind, right? And even though like I'm collecting this paycheck, I'm not earning it. Right. And I could earn it and I could have that purpose. And so, Cummings Off Surf, the money is not, it's a nonprofit. It basically was a wash. Right. So what I'm making here working full time, is basically what I was getting for sitting on a couch, but like, it was that decision, which there was a bit of fear. Like, am I ready for this? Like kind of second guessing or second kind of doubting myself, but like, I had to do it kind of for my own kind of transition, for my own, becoming self-sufficient, who I'm supposed to be, post-military,
Well, rebuilding that self, but my point is like, because when he came back to work, it's like I told him, is regardless of how you feel, I feel like I allowed you to take on too much that allowed that downward spiral to happen. And I said, if you're willing to do this and you're ready to do this, then we're going to go at this thing. And so, but my point is through all these experiences I've went through with more people than just John, it has allowed us to have the understanding and, to be more clear about the journey of what it takes to be healthy. And one of the most powerful things is taking the reins of your own horse, so to speak,
for sure,
which then allows you to feel that self-worth and that And more importantly, because our studies that we've done is like we realize we've had 2 medical studies done on us. And one of our studies done by Russell Crawford is we decrease PTSD by 36%, decrease depression by 47%, and increase self-efficacy by 68%. And that self-efficacy is what Russell said is that's what empowers and enables people to face these new challenges that are in front of them, that they can do these things. And that's what surfing can bring. So that's what I really wanted, how everything is really relative. And, it's and really cool too, is because we did one that was the old school style with just all the written tests. And we did that one. And then we did another test with the biometrics with the Whoop band.
Studies.
The studies, right? And we found that the PTSD and depression and anxiety dropped just like the other programs, but this was being tracked by biometrics. But we did find that people sleep better when they surf. Yeah. And we all know how important sleep is, and the heart rate variabilities and all that stuff. So we've done a lot of really cool things, but leading into that is I've been able to take some pretty amazing people surfing. And one of the spouses of our soft community was involved in this organization that, and she goes, I don't know if you realize what you guys do, because we're a curriculum-based program. Like we have structure of what we do from before you get here till when you depart, and to stay connected. And she says, you have so many things that have evidence-based data that prove what you guys are doing works. And so now we're in the middle of doing all this stuff to bringing out all the things. And so she's saying all these different things that we do produce all these positive effects in the human, not only the neurological side, but the physical and everything we're basically doing. And so we have some new stuff coming. So it's pretty cool about what we're doing and how it's really affecting the veteran, but more important, the human being that has challenges.
Yeah. And one of our Team Red, White, and Blue, I don't know if you guys have heard of them. That's one of our coalition partners. They're very much in the health and fitness space. That's kind of where they live, in that wellness, right? Just the idea of like, nobody's going to take care of you. You got to take care of yourself. And there's some interesting things, as John was talking, I was like, yeah, this is a story that I hear often with pills, and like, just because you don't know. I mean, it's not like this is weirdness, right? Like, I don't understand my health. Easy answer is go to doc. Doc just gives it to, because at the other side, they're telling you, don't go online. Don't be trying to figure it out yourself. But then you go in and they keep giving, and you're like, okay. So it's really interesting to hear Team Red, White, and Blue talk about, taking ownership of your health. And nobody's saying that you have to become a doctor, you have to become anything else, but just getting out into nature and doing the things that you were put on earth to do alone will help you. And you will start to see the benefit as long as you continue to stack this. And I think, John, your story is another prime example of like you showing that, right? Like showing this idea that just because the VA gives me disability, it's one of the things I always say, I got some pretty good injuries in my time, and it hurts, man. Right. And I've had people ask me, man, you want to go to the gym, man? You go to the gym, then it can't. Well, so what, man? Like, it hurts. Don't think just because I'm in there doing it, man, it feels good. Because I'm telling you right now, it doesn't. Like, it hurts. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, why? Why does that spot right there hurt? Where did that come from? But you got to power through this, right? It's the idea of hope. John, I wanted to ask you one thing, from your perspective, if you give one piece of advice to a veteran or even a family member, right? Because you are a connective group with your spouse. What would be that one thing that you would say to somebody who's struggling in a transition, the importance of like a tribe or finding somebody like Operation Surf? Because obviously Van's a piece of it, but we can also say that you're just finding a tribe like you did could be beneficial. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
One piece of advice. Gosh. Right. Take your time. Be patient with yourself. Like I kind of said in the beginning, who you are, like in the military, at least not from my perspective, didn't translate to civilian world, right? Like, who what I was there is not who I am now. And I can look at the military now as a chapter of my life, as something that I, it was a part of me. It's something that I experienced, but it's not where I am today. And figuring out how to get to that other chapter isn't something that I could do by thinking my way through it. I couldn't,
Right.
I couldn't, I had to physically go through it. It was just like and that takes time. I mean, it took me, I've been out for 9 years now,
Yeah.
It probably took me like, 5-6 years to really kind of get into the thick of the transition.
Yeah.
And just be patient, be kind to yourself, and just know that, it's temporary, whatever you're going through, whether how bad it is, there will be, another side, to the story.
Yeah. And I think a powerful thing that you said earlier, both of you actually said this, was don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to accept help. Those are two very, very hard things for any serviceman, any veteran, honestly, because we always do so much on our own that and what I don't mean is there's an enablement part that I love that you kind of expressed, John, of like somebody does my finance, somebody does my medical records. Like I don't have to do anything except for be a warfighter. That's my job. So knowing that as a veteran, as a family member, now comes that next mentorship point that both of you said, where you've listened to other people, just for a second, think about the idea. It's okay. If they're offering you help, it's because they want to, right? Like you don't have to accept it right then. Wait, take your time. John, I think that's what you're saying. You don't have to jump straight into something. Because, again, you got to be careful what you're doing. But I think that that's a powerful thing that I've heard both of you guys say during this conversation, is that idea. And then also saying yes, hey, do you want help? It's easy to say no because you're like, man, it's not always an ego. It's just like, that's not, I'll do it. Right. It's like doing the water. I got it. Well, sometimes it's okay to say yes, man.
Some people told me, he goes, man, it's not a handout, it's a hand up. Because if you use
That's
it
right.
to better your life, it's a hand up. So you could be able to do that for somebody else. And
100%.
And so the one thing that is been said in here, and a perspective I like to change is like, to expose any challenge is not a sign of weakness. To actually share that to other people is a sign of strength. Because if I can and when I learned how to expose the challenges in my life, I became stronger. And it actually showed me the power of holding that back because of my pride and ego to what I thought that you might think of me because of what I expose about myself. It doesn't matter, because I was told, draw a circle around your ass, and anything outside that circle is none of your business. So what you think about what you think about me is none of my business.
Yeah. 100%.
What really helps me is to empower people, like John's story, is to say it's okay to tell people that you're not doing good. It's okay to say that you struggled, but this is what I'm doing to help me go through that struggle. And that changes everything, and so it's strength, and if you're a strong man and you're fighting a different war, the war is suicide prevention.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
And if you're going to do what it takes to not go through, that opportunity that John is tell somebody.
That's right.
That's strength. And sometimes it takes practice to be able to do that, and courage. And so, and, on our war fighters, they have it, it's just, how are you going to use it?
That's right.
And so just to be on, like, this has been a really great podcast, Ray. This, there's some really powerful things that have been said on here, and, and it's just, I had to say how grateful we are that you brought us on to be able to do this, to not only share with other veterans, but, any other nonprofits or whoever's going to be listening to this thing. It's been a gift, and so.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah. And we appreciate you guys. And before we let you guys go, Van, one question I had for you: what are ways that the listeners can support you guys? Like what are meaningful ways they can get involved? Obviously they can donate, but like what things can folks that are listening in help?
Well, it's a nonprofit, so everything we do is connected to a dollar. So obviously donating, more importantly, if you know someone that can donate, share our story with them and encourage them or sit them down to watch our documentary on Netflix called Resurface. And there's other things, like we have a golf tournament, July 21st, here at Sounds Beautiful Country Club. You can be a sponsor if you have, destination locations, houses, or places that you can donate, and not to give, but for like an Airbnb style for, things to help us raise money. There's always that. There's, air miles. If you have American Airlines and United, because those are the only, or Alaskan that fly into San Luis Obispo.
If we buy a lot of plane tickets, like getting veterans all over the country and the world here. Yeah.
It's so flight, and I don't know. It's just, if there's a lot of things that, maybe just an idea that you think that you might be able to help or something. And, more importantly is the biggest thing is to tell people, is because, we're capable of helping more people, but we can't. And so we tell a lot of people no. We've helped like 9 different countries start programs. We've had other past participants go on and start other organizations, all over the United States. And what we're doing is helping, but there's so much more to do.
Right.
And so tell people, share who we are and what we do, with more people, more importantly, the people that can support our mission. And there's one last thing that I want to really point out is it's the village mentality. They used to say it takes a village to raise a child. And the concept that is like everybody has an important element in the whole group. Everyone does a little bit here and there to make the whole village survive. Part of the village doesn't succeed. It's the whole village succeeds. And so by donating time, donating money, doing any little bit, telling somebody whatever it takes to be a part of the village is helping our outcome. And so when we have the testimonies where someone comes back and says that you saved my life, you changed my life, you've given me the ability to move forward, whatever it may be, every bit of the village is what it takes to make that testimony happen. And we can't bring people here because there's no cost to them whatsoever without the support. And for platforms like this, Ray, with, the Roll Call, podcast, and, just to share the human story, and I guess that's it. Or you can give us a call or email us, and ask any questions you want. I encourage it.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Van, I thank both you and John both for telling your stories. I mean, both very impactful stories in different ways, right? And I want the listeners to understand that what they're doing is not just for what some perceptions would think is broke people, right? We are all human. None of us live this life perfectly. We all have as Van put so gently earlier, we all have our demons, right? And in different forms and different shapes that are inside. This is a great organization that takes something that most people are scared of. Just to be honest, I grew up in Florida, right? We don't have waves there, right? So the idea of me getting in the water, trying to surf, first off, I'm like, I'm probably going to get eaten by a shark, right? And then the second part of it, it's like, hey, man, I'm from Florida, dude. We just swim. We don't need a surfboard. But the idea here is that listening to them, you understand the hope and the idea of something that you can do and that I know I could do because I'm taking the mentorship, I'm trainable, and all these things that we talked about on here. And at the end of it, I get to hang out with John, talk smack like he used to when he was a veteran, have a great time with spouses. And at the end of it, you make lifelong friends. And that's what giving back to others is all about. You're on this earth for a reason. So make every day valuable as you push across. So thank you guys for joining the Last Mission podcast today. I can't thank you guys enough. OperationSurf.org for everybody. Please take time to visit. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ray.
Right on. Thank you very much.